Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today we had a few new teasers for the Sentinel League. Nothing absolutely massive, but there has been a little bit of discussion, especially with an emergency bug fix to an interaction between Flame Wall and Blast Chain Mine support when it was linked to a projectile skill. I made a separate video on that, so won't go into that any further. You probably weren't going to encounter that bug just through natural gameplay. It was causing Flame Wall to do about 25 times as much damage as intended. Height of Hubris is a new Atlas Keystone. This is for those of you who are very confident that you can destroy really difficult bosses really quickly. 100% increased effect of modifiers on your invitations. Now this means 100% increased effect of item quantity mods on them, so it does have an upside, but this is going to make invitations really deadly. The invitations affected by this are all of the Maven's arena fights except the actual Maven's Writ itself, and also the fights against the Searing Exarch, the Eater of Worlds, the Black Star, and the Infinite Hunger. So anything that you roll on those is going to be doubled in its modified value. Some things don't double. For instance, players are affected by Temporal Chains. Well, great, I've got Temporal Chains, I've got it twice, doesn't have any double effect. However, there are a number of mods that become extremely bad when they're doubled. Some of these are things like monsters have a 50% chance to avoid non-elemental ailments, or monsters have a 70% chance to avoid elemental ailments. Effects of auras on players are reduced by 60%, well that's going to be down to 0. All these sorts of things where scaling them up to 100 or beyond ends up causing them to be ridiculous. The one that you really want to watch out for though, and this is not obvious, is area is covered in desecrated ground. Not just desecrated ground, the same applies to burning ground, chilled ground, and shock ground. The way that these mods work is that there is a hidden number value attached to them, and that number value gets doubled by effects like Height of Hubris. That number value dictates how many tiles worth of desecrated ground are present in the map, and this means that if you were to open up a invitation that has area has desecrated ground on it, you may end up with a situation where the entire arena is desecrated ground. So you absolutely must be immune to ground effects, otherwise you cannot do an encounter that has Height of Hubris and has one of those ground effects on it. So yeah, the vast majority of players should not allocate this. This is if you are really confident in your character, you've got something absolutely ridiculous that you want to put to an extreme test, then you can do this. How big are the payoff and the rewards? Actually not that big. If you've got an invitation that's been boosted to 55% quantity, then this is going to go from 155% base loot to 210% base loot. That's about a 33% more multiplier to your loot. While that's nothing to sneeze at, it's also nothing to write home about either. It's significant, but it's not massive, and it certainly doesn't make up for the tremendously higher chance that you'll fail the encounter losing all 6 portals. You need to be really confident. In short, you need to be at the Height of Hubris to take this one. Next is Forbidden Flame with 9 lives. So these were teased in the live streams a couple of days ago. And these Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh jewels are now new ones that are being added. They'll add special ascendancy passives that you can't get anywhere else. And 9 lives specifically causes 25% of damage taken to be recouped as life, mana, and energy shield. That's a lot of recoup. And then recoup effects instead occur over 3 seconds. So this concentrates the recovery of life into a shorter period of time. You'll know that this one's only available to the Witch, but each of the other classes is going to get its own Forbidden Flame / Forbidden Flesh mod, and this will be a separate ascendancy passive that you can only get through these jewels. How good is this? I think it's very good, but it does not fit on every build. This is something that people will definitely play around with and at least seriously consider in the Wardloop builds that were pretty dominant towards the end of 3.17. Kind of interested to see where people go with those. So next we have the item filter information. If your name's not Neversink, you probably won't need to refer to this as a reference, unless you design your own loot filter from the ground up. However, it does contain a little bit of other information, all of the different types of power cores and recombinators, all of the different things related to Sentinels. There's dozens of Sentinel types, base types of Sentinels that exist, all the new Pantheon soul changes, but probably more interesting to most players is the map tiers. These are the basic tiers that the maps are going to be at in a 0 Voidstone Atlas. We don't yet have the information for what they look like on a 1, 2, or 3 Voidstone Atlas, and of course on a 4 Voidstone Atlas, everything is going to be tier 16. One thing that a lot of players have been pointing out is that Strand, Alleyways, Beach, Fields, and Fungal Hollow, none of these are bad, the tier 14 maps. This means that any Horizon Orb used on a tier 14 map is going to be a good result, and any Harbinger Orb used on a tier 13 map is also going to lead to a good result. You'll either get a tier 14 or you get a beachhead. So keep that in mind as something that might be worth your while considering when you're planning your Atlas strategies, especially for early to mid league. Lastly, we have two things that are more player oriented. Firstly, a large number of the best racers in the game have signed a sort of non-aggression pact of sorts, if you like, to not use Detonate Dead or Seismic Trap. Now, this is for the hardcore solo self-found race that is being run by GGG to partly promote the new content and also as a way to award unique item commissions, which seems like something GGG might do going forward, given how well received it's been so far. However, this treaty, and I will warn you, it's going to be a flashbang here, is basically a number of top players, like some of the very, very best players in the game, have signed this saying they won't use Detonate Dead and they won't use Seismic Trap. And this has a few conditions on it, but basically, if you look down the list, it really is almost a who's who of the best races in Path of Exile. Definitely interesting to see how this follows through. Lastly is something that's a little bit of fun. This is one of the greatest posts that gets made every league. The flowchart for selecting your build. I will put a link to this down in the description below. This is just going to make you laugh from start to finish. So many smart-ass comments about helping people select their build. For example, start here. How do you feel about no balance changes? Oh, okay, I want to play a known good build. Why? So I can get drunk and still have a good league start. What kind of drunk? Is it I'm going to start throwing stuff drunk, or is it stuff is spinning drunk? If you answer I'm going to start throwing stuff drunk, then Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder gets recommended to you. If you answer stuff is spinning drunk, then Poison Spectral Helix Pathfinder will get recommended to you. This is one of the funniest threads that gets posted on the Path of Exile subreddit every league, and this one is one of the best ones that's ever been there. So I'll definitely put a link down in the description below. Make sure that you go and have a laugh and enjoy that. Otherwise, that's all I got. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and I will see you around.